Snake stowed away to the series' first portable iteration in 2000's Metal Gear Solid Ghost Babel. The story wasn't canon, but the action was. Losing the Solid moniker in Japan, Ghost Babel sat as a what-if scenario, supposing an alternative future that took place after the first Metal Gear. It was directed by Shinta Nojiri, who went on to do the Acid series and contributed to Sons of Liberty and Snake Eater. Kojima was still credited for planning and story, but his efforts were focused on Sons of Liberty during Babel's production. Seven years after Outer Heaven was destroyed, Snake was once again called upon by Roy Campbell. Led by General Augustine Egwaban, the fictional country of Gindra in Central Africa had gotten its hands on Metal Gear technology while enveloped in civil war. As the leader of the GLF, the Gindra Liberation Front, they held up in what had been Outer Heaven just 7 years earlier. Intrigued, Snake came out of retirement, donned a parachute, and started sneaking. His adventure led him through forest and fortress, with information being fed to him via codec from Campbell, Weasel, a mercenary, Brian McBride, director of African Affairs for the CIA, and Mei Ling, the exemplary grad student who cast pearls of wisdom before Snake while saving his game. After some flirting with the codec, Snake found Sergeant Christine Jenner, the only surviving member of the Delta Force sent in before Snake, who was traveling incognito in a GLF uniform. Snake also met and rescued the portly James Jimmy the Wizard Harks, an imprisoned teenager who happened to be behind the construction of the new Metal Gear, Gander. Along the way, Snake battled more than the GLF. The General acquired the services of Black Chamber, a US Black Ops group that went rogue and made their mark as the bosses. Slasher Hawk was an Australian aborigine who threw boomerangs. The psychotic marionette owl attacked with 2 Bunraku puppets, knives, and darkness, forcing Snake to switch to night vision. Pyro Bison hunted Snake with his flamethrower 4 years before the Fury fight, before succumbing and setting himself ablaze. Their leader was Blackheart's Viper, a master of illusions and traps, who used the GLF situation to take revenge on Foxhound. Snake progressed and trampled Black Chamber villain by villain, culminating with the ultimate battle with Metal Gear. As the plot unraveled, friends became enemies and friends again, while others died. In a final battle with Viper, you discovered CIA liaison Brian McBride was actually the 5th member of Black Chamber, as Snake learned that Gindra and the Ghost Babel project were made to insurrect Pan-African unity, like Outer Heaven, another US government exercise that went rogue. With the 3rd model of Metal Gear destroyed, Snake and Christine Jenner left to a happy ending. Ghost Babel was considered a portable masterpiece, garnering high accolades and top scores from multi-platform publications and websites. It had managed to deliver a Metal Gear experience with the limited technology of the Game Boy Color, and incorporated many of the series' tropes, both old and new. Crawling, guided Nikita missiles, and the venerable cardboard boxes were there, as well as lengthy codec conversations. Babel was broken into levels instead of featuring a consistent world, but that made for better portable play, and there were no compromises in design. It also included over 100 VR missions to test your skills with weapons and stealth. Ghost Babel was rated E by the ESRB despite the foggers obviously being Snake's patented smokes, references to alcohol, and even some mild blasphemy. And of course, a ton of dead bodies, including a suicide. The Game Boy Advance premiered the following summer, but Snake would not be sighted on a handheld until E3 2004, when Kojima's team unveiled the first Metal Gear for the PlayStation Portable, Metal Gear Acid. The visuals were in line with the previous PlayStation 2 titles, but the gameplay was drastically different. Rather than a real-time stealth action experience, the creators shifted gear and opted for turn-based strategy that utilized cards for all actions. director Shinta Nojiri went on record stating the decision to utilize card strategy rather than previous conventions was due to the PSP's characteristics. The developers wanted to give players something distinctive instead of just another MGS. Acid was released in Japan in December of 2004 with a stateside launch in March of 2005. Acid was an official Metal Gear title, but Kojima considered it a side story in its own universe. Taking place in 2016, a retired Solid Snake was called into action to break into the Lobido Physics and Chemistry Laboratory. Snake had to recover something known as Pythagoras in order to prevent a group of terrorists from blowing up a jumbo jet carrying Senator Hatch, as well as other civilians. Snake was aided by team members Roger McCoy and psychic Alice Hazel, as well as Taliko Friedman, a member of the FBI's hostage rescue team. As Snake progressed through the lab, he took on the forces of Lieutenant Leone, whose mercenary group was hired by an anti-government militia in the Maloney Republic. His partner Taliko turned out to be Le Clown, a famous assassin, and a mental doppelganger named Hans Davis began making inconvenient appearances. Snake reunited with the real Taliko, stopped Le Clown, and destroyed the real Pythagoras, a shiny new Metal Gear. Acid's gameplay worked much like a strategy RPG. Players moved Snake along a map with his options shown via square grids. Cards were used to perform all actions, even the ability to move. They enabled Snake to attack with guns, replenish his health, or deal status effects. Players still had to avoid detection, shoot out cameras, sneak up on guards and knock them out, crawl through passageways, hide behind objects, and hang on ledges. Cards in the deck would be used up until the deck reset, so picking the right card for the right occasion was crucial. Acid included unique special cards based on nearly every other title in the series, including Ghost Babel. Though Acid provided a unique twist on stealth, fans and critics were disappointed with the turn-based mechanics, which took already slow-paced gameplay and brought it to a crawl. The story was simple by Metal Gear standards with less cutscenes and a higher focus on gameplay. The developers also opted to use text conversations and forego any formal voice work. Despite the lukewarm reception, a sequel appeared a year later. Metal Gear Acid 2 arrived in Japan in December of 2005 and then in March of 2006 in the US. Though a direct sequel, the game's protagonist was actually a completely different Snake than the one featured in Acid. The new Snake was a clone of the original, created from cell samples taken from the Lobido Island incident. MGA2's story opened with Snake illegally flying into the United States. His group was arrested by an FBI SWAT team and forced into a covert operation by an agent named Dalton. Snake had to infiltrate a research facility operated by military arms dealer Saint Logic. In the early stages of the mission, an official with the Department of Defense named General Wiseman took control. Snake was forced to partner up with a woman named Venus, who was searching for the Lucinda file, a log of a horrible act called the Pralia Massacre Snake was responsible for. Snake and Venus discovered that the real impending danger was a nuclear launch by a new Metal Gear model. The two confronted Snake's creators and ended the threat. Though the gameplay remained largely the same as its predecessor, MGA2 differentiated itself by utilizing more aesthetic variations. Finally incorporating the toon shading technique experimented with during the development of Sons of Liberty, MGA2's graphics engine featured a far more vibrant, stylized look. Weapons used by the characters were displayed graphically while equipped. In the original, actions were final, but in the sequel, players could cancel their previous movement and take a different course of action. Items could now be picked up by simply running over them, and MGA2 boasted the inclusion of over 500 upgradable cards, more than twice the number of Acid 1. MGA2 was also released with a peripheral device known as the Solid Eye. The device was a folding cardboard box that went over the PSP that generated a pop-out 3D effect, much like Nintendo's Virtual Boy. Japanese players could watch cutscenes from Snake Eater in Solid Eye mode as well. The word acid stood for three things. It represented the complete departure from the previous Metal Gear games in terms of style, which is an analogy to acid's ability to dissolve metal. A reference to vecuronium bromide, the chemical used by Elsie and Francis to hijack the passengers in the original title. And an acronym for Active Command Intelligence Duel, a reference to the game's mixture of turn-based strategy with card-based gameplay. MGA2 was better received by critics, but many fans still shunned it since it was a spin-off from the main series. With the next portable installment, Kojima and his team decided to reflect what fans had become used to on home consoles. Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops became a surprisingly prominent piece of the main series chronology. One of the biggest additions to the MGS formula was the inclusion of the Comrade system, necessitated by the game's plot point that a post-Snake Eater Big Boss had to recruit members of the Silo insurrection to take on Gene's forces. During action sequences, Boss simply had to incapacitate an enemy and drag them back to a truck on site. The enemy unit was then captured and, pending a time limit, would join your team. Of course, not every unit was the same. The first recruit was named Jonathan. He specialized in rescue operations and thus could drag enemies back to the truck faster. Snake could capture technical units to work on the creation of new items, medical units to heal the team faster, delivery men to transport equipment on and off site, and combat units to aid in Snake's sneaking missions. Players assigned each available unit to various teams to optimize performance. The result was a more squad-based experience, with players able to change out 4 characters in any level at any time. Even if Snake fell on the battlefield, players could take up one of any remaining soldiers. Though the process of procuring weapons and new recruits on site could get tedious, if the squad had certain units in place, the trips could be expedited. It was also required at points for players to place units in a spy team to recover intelligence required to progress, as well as uncover other optional data. Portable Ops was a mission-based game, with operatives moving around a 2D map to travel to various hotspots. Once on location, certain objectives needed to be accomplished in order to move the main story. However, players could venture into any one of the areas again to explore or replenish supplies. One of the limitations of the title was that any one character could only carry 4 items, so inventory management was crucial. Portable Ops utilized some of the newer control mechanics, such as a full 3D camera, albeit one limited to a single analog nub, and a radar indicator that resembled the one from Guns of the Patriots. Wi-Fi-enabled multiplayer was also included, an expansion of Metal Gear Online. One unique element of the multiplayer was that you could recruit and trade soldiers with opponents. Also, it was possible for a player to permanently lose one of their recruits during an online match. Unlike every other entry in the MGS series, the cutscenes in Portable Ops were not rendered using the in-game engine. Instead, they were presented with a unique comic style featuring hand-drawn artwork by artist Ashley Wood. The style was previously utilized in Metal Gear Solid digital graphic novel, as well as the novel for MGS2. Separating itself from the other portable titles, Ops included voice work during the cutscenes, though in-game sequences and conversations while viewing the map were strictly text-based.
Snake, I heard they gave you quite a welcome back home.
Campbell, you healing up all right?
Yep, nearly good as new.
Staying true to the Solid series, Portable Ops received an enhanced version as well. On July 17, 2007, Konami announced Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops Plus, a standalone expansion of the original game, focused on online play. Players could also take the reins of new characters like Raiden, Roy Campbell, and Old Snake. The story mode within Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops Plus was removed, and a new single-player mode called Infinity Mission was added, where the player had to go through randomly chosen maps looking for the advance point within the level. Some others required a special mission to be completed before it would appear. Data from Portable Ops could be transferred over so players started with their entire team intact from the get-go. The marathon cinemas and precision gameplay of Metal Gear Solid may not be perfectly suited for the handheld experience, but Ghost Babel, Acid, and Portable Ops embraced the limitations and behaviors of the systems they appeared on, making portable Metal Gear as eccentric and unique as the rest of the games in the franchise. On the dawn of Guns of the Patriots, GameTrailers presents a look back at the entire history of Kojima's war, as our Metal Gear retrospective comes to a close. We'll stitch the 7 canon games into a web of intrigue, and salute the end of an American hero.